Hi guys, by this time you should be finished with the lesson 6 of grammar in your textbook. You should be finished with the pages in your workbook to study this grammar. So this lesson is just a little review before the quiz of expressions of time for telling stories in the past. And when I give this presentation, I'm going to use 3 examples. The first example is Aram. Aram's story from the textbook, if you remember, is about this man who moves to the US. Then we have Arnold's story. This is Arnold Schwarzenegger. That will be one of our examples. And the last example is this familiar person. It will be a story from myself. Let's start. Part 1 of this presentation talks about the word in. Part 2 talks about the word later, and Part 3 talks about ago. Let's look at the word in. In your book, you have a table that looks like this, and I want to look just at this part in the bottom of the table. It says in July or in the fall. Use the word in to talk about a big unit of time, like a month, a season, or a year. This is the time that the event happened. So, for example, in Aram's story, I can choose any of these things, but if I choose this one, I would say in June 2015, Aram started English classes. Here, in 1968, Arnold moved to the US, and this would be the same if I chose 1967 or 1947. I would say in 1967 or in 1947. And for my own story, I could say in 1997, Tara graduated from high school. So in, you already know and you already use. It's pretty easy. The next word you need to know is later, and you have this explanation in the right side of the chart. This chart is on page 156 of your book. It says 1 month later, 2 days later, a week later, etc. Use the word later to show how much time passed between 2 events in a story. So if you talked about one thing that happened, you want to go to the next thing, then you use the word later. In Aram's story, I will start by saying in May 2015, Aram came to the US, and then I go from this to the next event, and I can see that the difference here is from May to June. So that's 1 month. So when I make my sentence, I will say 1 month later, he started English classes. If I want to go from this event in June to this event in January, I would count the months: June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January. That's 7 months. 7 months later, he got his first job. So I could continue this story and tell all of the other things that happened with the word later if I want. In Arnold's story, I would start and I could say here, in 1968, Arnold moved to the US, and then from 1968 to 1970s, 2 years. 2 years later, he starred in his first movie, Hercules in New York. What happened next? Well, this is 12 years difference. 12 years later, he starred in the famous movie, The Terminator. For myself, in 1997, Tara graduated from high school. 1 year later, she got a job as a cleaner. That's a true story. 2 years later, she got a job in a school. And 2000 to 2002, 2 years later again, she graduated. What do you think about this last part here? From May 2002 to October 2002. So time has passed, but it is less than a year. So May, June, July, August, September, October. That's about 5 months, I think. I would say 5 months later, or maybe about 6 months later, she got her first job as a teacher. So with these arrows that go from one thing to another thing, you're going to use the word later. That's it for now. Go ahead and take the quiz, and when you come to the second quiz, I will show you the second part of this video. Okay, part 3 of the lesson is with ago. Here in the book it says, like, I came to the US 3 years ago, or I came to the US 10 months ago. The word ago means in the past. So this word tells us how far back the event was from the present time. We measure it from the present. We start at the present, we go back, and we see how far back do we have to go. Look at this story. Let's look at 2020 as the present time. If we go back to the last thing that happened, 2003, how many years is that? Did you get 17 years? So when I made my sentence, I wrote, 17 years ago, Arnold became governor of California. That means 17 years in the past, Arnold became governor of California. Here's my story. If the present time is 2020, the last thing that happened in this story is October 2002. Oof, that is 18 years? Man, I'm getting old. 18 years. So 18 years ago, what happened? Tara got her first job as a teacher. I got my first job 18 years ago. 18 years in the past from now. Finally, for Aram's story, this is kind of interesting. If 2020 is the present, and this happened in 2019, I could say 1 year ago, Aram became a supervisor. Now, let me show you something. If something is 1 unit of time in the past, you can make the same sentence with last. So if I have 1 week ago, then I can also say last week. Or if I have 1 month ago, I can also say last month. 1 year ago means last year. So when I am working with the number 1 in the past, then I have this other possibility. I can use the word last instead. Ago is correct, and last is also correct. These are just 2 different ways to say the same thing. So in this example, if I say 1 year ago, Aram became a supervisor, I can also say last year, Aram became a supervisor. Those are both perfectly good sentences. So to do a little bit of practice, can you make 4 sentences? 1 sentence with in, 2 sentences with later, and 1 sentence with ago. Here, this is a real story of Thomas Valles, who you are learning about in the movie that we watched. He took first place in cross-country running. He graduated from high school, graduated from College of the Sequoias, and graduated from California State University. So he went on to do great things. We're supposed to write 4 sentences here. So I want you to pause the video and write your 4 sentences based on the story. Use 1 in, 2 later, and 1 ago. Are you ready to see the answers? These were the sentences I wrote. In 1987, Thomas took first place in cross-country running in the state of California. 1 year later, he graduated from high school. 2 years later, he graduated from College of the Sequoias. And if I look at the present time of 2020 and I go back into the past, I would say 28 years ago, He graduated from California State University, Bakersfield. That's the end of this lesson. Continue to the second part of the quiz that is going to quiz you on last and ago, and good luck to you.